It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Nicholas Robinson, Emeritus Professor of Environmental Law at Pace University, who will speak on COVID-19 cities and the environment.
So I'll be speaking about the whole question of the global pandemic in terms of the environment. And I bring to the Global Pandemic Network the greetings of the International Union for the Conservation of Nature and its World Commission on Environmental Law, which is keen to support the work that Alyssa Scotti and the others have all been undertaking, and also that of the International Council of Environmental Law. I'll focus on how resilience in human settlements is going to have to reshape both the settlements and the kind of law we apply. And I'll look at 4 points in this. The first is the duty to cooperate and to embrace through the relevant legal principles a pattern of cooperation for securing healthy cities. Secondly, I'll turn to human settlements and why they're essential in meeting the challenges of the present COVID-19 pandemic and the future ones, which are coming. Indeed, Zoanosis is with us right now, and we have the next pandemic around us. Third, I'll look at the environmental tools that need to be invoked by local authorities, by civil society to promote this resilience, and then focus on one health framework that can bring this all together. The duty for cooperation, of course, is well known to all of us on this webinar. It is both a principle of international law and a function of customary law and municipal law. The United Nations General Assembly has adopted a resolution last April on global solidarity to fight for the coronavirus disease and called for more intense international cooperation. And that emphasized implicitly a decision in 2017 of the UN Environmental Assembly in Nairobi. What the challenge the UN faces, and we all face, is how to align synergies of all the SDGs, their interrelationships, and the goals that have been set with the legal principles, both human rights and environmental rights. And the UN has a negotiation going on right now under resolution 73333 for a new political declaration on these questions in 2022. So we should all participate in that debate. That's 50 years after the 1972 Stockholm Conference. The Sustainable Development Goals are quite relevant to cities. First, goal number 11 says, make cities inclusive, safe, and resilient and sustainable. And as everyone on this webinar has said already, and UN Habitat has emphasized, most of the people in the world live in cities, and increasingly so, and they are responsible not only for the responses to the COVID-19 disease in our hospitals or to this webinar's outreach of universities, but they create a lot of our carbon emissions, our environmental problems, and are the home for our economy. But we also have to look at the other SDGs and how they work together. Now, the concept of resilience that has been promoted here is implicit in the right to the environment, which the Global Pact for the Environment has been debating, a proposal that came from France to the UN. And in it, there is actually a principle for resilience, a legal principle. This is an emergent general principle of international law. The parties, says the Global Pact, shall take necessary measures to maintain and restore the diversity and capacity of ecosystems and human communities to withstand environmental disruptions and degradation and to recover and adapt. Now, this is not a marginal activity, and it's not something that's outside of cities or outside of human. It is the capacity of ecosystems and human communities because we are embedded together. The next pandemic is coming. The one we're enduring now was predicted. All these publications I show here basically stated well before 2019 that it was at our doorstep or launched. The tripartite guide of the World Health Organization, the Food and Agricultural Organization and the Organization for Animal Health, as a series of recommendations. It came out in the spring of 2019. And of course, most of these recommendations are not known to the mayors in our cities. They're not implemented, and the central governments don't do much to promote them. And since zoonosis is all around us, and notwithstanding the wonderful work of Habitat or UNESCO, the United Nations does not do much for cities. Cities have to look out for themselves. And this is one of the reasons why we have the ICLEI, the Local Governments for Sustainability, and we can see patterns of urban resilience from the studies in the Stockholm Resilience Center in Sweden. But the important thing is that we are all linked together with nature, even if we're in a dense city. And in 2017, what the Nairobi UN Environment Assembly recognized is that biodiversity loss is a health risk multiplier. What that means is that when we have a biodiversity loss, zoonosis takes place, the viruses and bacteria are shed from their natural host, they look for a new home as their driving force, they find it in humans, and the only way we can really stop that is to have One Health, a One Health approach, an integrated approach that fosters cooperation between environmental conservation, human health, animal health, plant health sectors, and through this process to enhance ecosystem resilience. We can't let that happen outside of a unified approach. If we outsource nature conservation to protect wild animals, it doesn't happen. Too many people are encroaching on their habitats. We have to have a one world approach. And in 2019, in October, before the pandemic, the German Foreign Office and the Wildlife Conservation Society proclaimed the Berlin Principles to recognize that all of us have to take action to retain the essential health links between humans, wildlife, domesticated animals, plants, and nature, because this is the fundamental basis for life on the planet. We've already developed a number of tools to do this, but they're not heavily supported, they're not aggressively applied. And I've come up with 7 environmental law tools that already exist in our national legislation and in international agreements. We have, of course, the principles of environmental law that I'll touch upon again briefly. Stewardship of natural areas and parks, both locally and in other continents from where we live. Aligning spatial planning and land use laws in our cities. Implementing environmental impact assessment robustly. Revising our construction and building code standards in cities, and climate change. The principles are well understood. We have to have a better reliance on shared principles, which is why the push for the Global Pact was undertaken. And we do have, of course, the guidance of the precautionary principle. But none of this is applied yet to zoonosis. We need to embrace zoonosis as part of our everyday life. It is as important to us as washing our hands or wearing masks. We have best practices for protected areas, but we think it's somebody else's job. Who is to look out after the Amazon or after the Central African forests? Frankly, it's the job of us in New York. It's the job of us in Rome. If we don't take care of this, the virus, the microbe, will be on an airplane and be in our backyard in the urban center tomorrow. Now, we have techniques for aligning spatial planning. We can come up with ways to create migration corridors and keep local wildlife healthy, both in North America and in Western Europe. We have Lyme disease, which is not imported from other continents. We created it, let it spill out into our own environment. And IUCN has a number of tools for this, the guidelines for protected area legislation. And in this book that Ted Trezina edited on urban protected areas, there's an entire chapter on emerging infectious diseases, the very sort of thing that we're encountering today. EIA is robustly used in some places. The city of New York has been doing it since 1971, or 73 rather. We have guidelines that have come out of scientific studies on how to identify and avert zoonotic spillovers through EIA techniques. As we study EIA, we need to identify the ecosystem degradation patterns and how to repair them. New York State has a very robust law that is now under active study for how to use EIA to prevent the next pandemic. And since EIA is a holistic approach that is to engage all sectors, it's something we can do. We also have a number of recommendations for revising building codes to embed resilience. These come from climate change, but I would point out to you that these suggestions have been made in the past and largely ignored. Thomas Fisher's essay, Viral Cities, Urban Design and Public Health from the Medieval Plague to H1N1 was in 2010. And of course, the one who introduced all of this to us and is the father for our current quest for a vaccine is Louis Pasteur. Les microbes ne rien le terrain et tout. The microbe is a little thing, a little virus. It doesn't even, there's a debate about how alive it is until it catches us. But caring for the Earth's habitats is everything. And as the UN Global Environmental Assessment in 2019 report indicates, we're not on the right trajectory. We are imperiling the planet, and this is causing the magnification of more zoonotic diseases. That's one of the findings in this report, which came out before the pandemic. So we need to unite our systems of governance and policy together, and this cannot be done at just the international level or the state level. It has to be done in the cities at the local level and with civil society. To do that, I think we have to suggest that environmental law has focused too much on pollution and containing chemicals and so on. It needs to get back to an ecological premise, the One Health premise, that if we don't work together with One Health on the planet, we will all suffer together for failing to do so. And this means we must reshape environmental norms toward ecological law. And I welcome the Global Pandemic Network's initiatives for this research. I think it's quite extraordinary that the pandemic has caused this network to come together, and the focus on cities is a very welcome place to begin. Cities are, of course, a common concern of humankind, and we need to build their resilience as fast as we can. I thank you all very much for your attention. I look forward to learning from the other participants, and be well.